I kind of look at parenting like someone says, hey, let's go on a hike, and you say, okay, you know, not having never done that before, that sounds good. And they say, okay, put all these things in your pack, and you do, and then they drop you off at the Grand Canyon. And they say, okay, I want you to find your way by yourself to the bottom and back up. I came from a family where my parents had divorced. When I was in my 30s, my mom committed suicide. And so for parenting, when I look back at it, I think, you know, I probably didn't have the best example of what it was like to parent normal dysfunctional kids, and so, like myself.
My dad, my biological father, I should say, his name's Aaron. He was out of my life by the time I was 5 years old.
Aaron is my biological son, but my husband adopted him when he was 4. And so there were abandonment wounds that we knew nothing about.
My mother married another man who I call my dad. His name's Matthew. She married him when I was 3 years old. And there was a custody battle. Matt told Aaron, look, you owe a lot of child support. You just haven't been paying it. But if you give up custody, you don't have to pay. And he took the deal. And I didn't see him again until I was 18. I felt that, you know, everybody else they're priceless. But I can be bought for, it's not even all that much money in the grand scheme of things. I started to not do well in school in middle school, and my relationship with Matt really started to go downhill.
Things were bad between me and Aaron, and things were bad between my husband and Aaron, and things were bad between me and my husband. You know, because when you have a kid who's struggling, they're not the only ones that are struggling. Everybody's struggling.
My relationship with my dad is getting worse and worse. A lot of emotional and mental abuse, and some physical as well. We had a couple of really big blow-ups. He left a couple times. And one time he didn't come back for 2 months. There was a big stretch of time where the only time we interacted at all was when he was yelling at me, or on his way to his office, he would stop by my room and look at me and he'd scoff. That's when I started to learn how to hate.
Things had kind of escalated to a point to where Aaron had come to us and said, you know what, I don't want to live here anymore.
I was ready to leave. I didn't get along with Matt. My home life was awful. I was always grounded.
And we just told him, we said, if you leave, you don't take your car, you don't take your phone, you don't take your debit card. Those are privileges of living in our home. And so in my mind, I thought, for sure, 2 weeks. 2 weeks, he'll be back. I'd gone online that night and was looking for parenting resources. None of my friends know what to do, so where can I find some help, you know, some hope? And so I'd come across Parenting Today's Teens online. I'd never heard of Mark Gregson before, and so I'm looking at this website and I'm thinking, wow, this guy, you know, I like his mustache, and wow, he has some really good things to say, and this sounds so reasonable and so sound. Why didn't I get any of this information anywhere else? Then I saw this thing at the bottom that said Heartlight, and so I clicked on it and I thought, well, that's cool, look at this place, you know, and I'm thinking, wow, I'm so glad that I don't need a place like that. 2 weeks turned into 2.5 months.
I'd continued to hang out with these bad influences, and all of a sudden I'm like, well, I might as well just kind of party for a little bit, a couple days, a weekend. The weekend turned into 2 months. And I got into a lot of drugs.
Our son was in a really bad spot and had made some decisions that at 17 were going to change his life. And I really thought that if we didn't do something drastic, he was going to be dead. I really didn't think he was going to make it.
So I moved back in, and a week later I got arrested.
It was at that moment that the Lord was like, do you remember that place you saw online? We went and checked it out 2 days later, and 3 days after that, Aaron was there.
I had two choices. I could either go to a school called Heartlight, or I could figure it out on my own.
We told him, we said, listen, if you don't do this, you know, that's it. You can go to jail. You can stay there and you can figure this out on your own with an attorney, because we're not going to help you anymore. And so at 17, almost 18 years old, that was a defining moment in his life. When we dropped him off at Heartlight, it was one of the hardest things I had to do as a parent, to admit that I did not have the skills. I did not have the tools in my backpack to raise my child. It's like being on a treacherous path. You need someone to guide you. We thought we were alone on this path, and we weren't. We weren't alone. We were surrounded with other families who were in the same place we were.
I ended up getting through Heartlight, and it was really quick, and I learned a lot. I made some fantastic friends that I still talk to this day, and the staff there was just absolutely amazing.
Aaron, it was amazing. He worked the program there, and he graduated within 9 months, and it was phenomenal.
I got a lot of tools. My main problem was those tools, they're no use if you're not going to use them. And I left them in the toolbox a lot of the time. So I got out of Heartlight, and I was doing well for a summer, and then I went to college. And I again started going crazy. All of a sudden I didn't have any supervision. I had no discipline. I ended up dropping out. I went and lived with a buddy, and I got a job putting in underground utilities. And I stopped talking to my parents at this point. People started handing me drugs again, and I had a one-night stand with this girl. And I had a thought, what if I got this girl pregnant? And the answer was immediately, I would not stay. And that was like a punch in the gut, because I always thought I was a better person than Aaron, my biological father. And in that moment I realized I'm not. I'm no better than he is. I was walking in his footsteps. If anybody knew all the things I've done, especially if they knew my heart when I was doing it, they wouldn't love me, because I don't deserve to be loved. You know, I took this girl who's a human being. She has hopes and dreams, and she has fears, and I threw her away. And even if that was the only thing I've done, that's enough to me to put me up there with the worst. But that's not the end of the story. As soon as I had that thought that I can't be loved, God spoke to me, and he said, I love you. And I started crying immediately, because I don't deserve it, and he loves me anyway. It's a story about how weak I am, but it's also a story about how strong God is. And it's a story about how terrible I am, but it's also a story about God can still redeem me.
The healing that was able to happen, of being able to say, you know what, God's not done with his story yet. God wasn't done with our story yet. This was our family's issue. And there were things that not only he had to do to change, but there were things that we needed to change.
Just because we have tools, it doesn't mean we're going to use them. And just because you go to Heartlight doesn't mean your kid's going to be fixed. That's not what Heartlight does. It doesn't fix your kid. What Heartlight does do is it gives your kids and the parents the tools that they need to make it through life. Because if I didn't have those tools, I don't know where I'd be.
I see hope, I see joy. There's hope in knowing that things can be different if people choose for it to be different. I can totally see how God has used all of these things to bring us to a place of, no, life is not perfect, but there's hope in it.